Hi there. So I have a kind of a special project that I'm working on, and I kind of started getting into it, and I realized that maybe I would show the process here because I get asked a lot, or it's suggested to me to do a sort of class on costing and production and being a bag maker, and I haven't gotten around to it. And honestly, one of my really passionate things is domestic manufacturing, and it's not something I talk about on my streaming channel because that's not what that's about. But it is something I'm really passionate about, and I think I would really like the information to be as widely available as possible. Now, I'm not really an expert. I'm not an expert in business. I didn't go to business school. I'm not an expert in manufacturing or design or having a factory. I just know what worked for us, what didn't work for us, and my thought processes. And certainly, I could have done things far better in many instances. I could have taken more risks or less risks here and there. But I do think that I have still a lot to add to the conversation, especially surrounding costing, logic, logistics, and the design process. So I don't consider myself some sort of great designer or even who people are looking at for that kind of thing. There are certainly people that are more popular when I was doing chicken boots, and it's just kind of that thing, right? But I know I had a lot of skills and a lot more background than a lot of bag makers do coming to this. So I thought this might help you guys. So, because it's no easy job, and I understand that. And I think some folks, because they don't have some of those technical abilities and maybe they have to farm certain things out, you got to rely on the strengths that you have. So when Sincere Sheep asked me to make a bag for her Made Here Yarn Club recently, I kind of was like, oh, but I don't really do that anymore. But then I was like, that sounds kind of fun, and I could use the extra money. Plus, I thought, well, maybe I can tie it into it being a pattern for sale for someday or something like that. Maybe it'll be a really good, it's just kind of a good project to do. And I'm planning on making some big shifts around here soon, so maybe I would have the time to do it. So this is going to be my process about it. I've already started, as soon as something starts kind of tickling me about it, I kind of start moving really fast. So I had to stop, and I wanted to record this really quick so I don't get too far ahead because I'm in the design process part of it. Now, if you know any of my designs, it's not really currently my aesthetic, but I did really gravitate towards things that stay open, they're stiff, easy. Function is really, really important to me. It may not be the cutest looking thing, but it functions really well, and I think for me, function is pretty sexy. It's a very good looking trait to me. Anything that works well just feels really good and looks really good to me. So I always liked stiffener and binding in my projects, and now I want to get away from that. It's going to only be me making this, and it's about 100 bags that I need to make. And I have a fair bit of time right now, so this is perfect. I'm going to kind of set myself up for success. It's really nice to have. I have 6 months lead time, maybe a little less. And that's perfect, especially if you're someone in a factory, or you're not a factory, but maybe you're an indie bag maker and you're already thinking about summer shows, because right now it's January. Hopefully you're on the cusp of cutting out your summer stuff. I know a lot of you are like, no, I'm not. But that's okay. I've been there. I've literally cut things out the day before something was due because it just sometimes happens that way. And you can set yourself up as good as you can, and something in the long chain just breaks down, right? So it's why you try and start as far ahead as possible. But because I'm alone doing all the cutting and the sewing of this, and I think having this much time is perfect for me, especially because I'm making some big changes soon. So what did I want in this bag? My first idea quickly just went out the window because they were like, that's not a bag, and it wasn't. But I kind of got excited about it. I kind of went to my little basket of designs that I never really got very far on. People all the time would say, you should make this, you should design that. Don't you love those people? I know what I should do, but I still listened to everything that was said. And actually, I did actually do a few of the things that people asked for. I did the hanging circular needle holder. I did the binder pages to hold your needles and things like that. And there were a few other things, but when it got down to it, they were not going to be affordable to produce, affordable for people to buy, or they just plain just did not look that great. And I just didn't want my name on it. So I just kind of let someone else do it at that point. That's just how it is sometimes, you know? Maybe if I had another machine or this or that, it could have been a possibility. But I just needed to be honest. There's certain things I pushed, like a square peg through a round hole, because I really wanted to do it. And that's okay. You can have those passion projects. They kind of keep you fueled and keep you going. You just can't have too many of them. You got to have things that are a little bit, you know, that make you some money, keep you going, and pay the bills, because there's plenty of that not happening too. So I'm going to talk a lot about costing at some point. It's probably not going to be this video. And we will go over a lot of the nitty gritty of some of that. So I'm going to start with where I wanted this design to be. So if you know me at all, I like things that are bucket style, hold things, stand upright. I like functional things. I wanted it to not have any stiffener, no binding, no lining, no zippers. I wanted it to be a soft piece, but something still with structure and simple. And simple things are usually the hardest things to design. I have experienced this for 25 years. All the clients I had, all the places I've worked, the simple things took the longest to design. So I knew that if I wanted it to stay simple, it was probably going to be a little bit more effort on my part. So what I started with was kind of a clutch style bag. And I'm not a big fan of clutch style bags, but I thought I could bring something to this. You know, it had sides right here, and then the flap came over here, and it would have a magnetic closure that you wouldn't see. I had to be careful though. Magnets can be extremely expensive. Even the tiny ones in our pattern holder were 38 cents each. So that meant they were about 76 cents a pair. Once you do the wholesale, which is like 1.5 times that, then you double that for wholesale. You're getting into a $3 and $4 item for one tiny part. And a magnet that's bigger to hold the bag shut, that's like $1 each. So you're talking about a $2 thing, right? I'm not wholesaling this bag per se, but still have to look at that. I don't want it to take up a percentage of my overall cost, right? So I also couldn't figure out a handle. Like any handle was going to pull this flap open, and I didn't want it to look like a lunch box, you know, and that would pull the flap open. I didn't want a handle on the sides. I thought that would be clunky. I didn't really feel it. And this is kind of where it started. I already cut the flap off, and then I folded it back, and then I kind of looked at going, what if I rolled it back, you know, in the bag being a different proportion, obviously. This was just something. I just threw it together, raw edges and all. I also knew, like, okay, here we are, raw edges, binding. It's not stiffener. And I was already kind of losing interest for that. And I'll do things like this where I'll cut things. I worked for a long time trying to figure out a way to, what if you could have a bag that it was something that it all folded and nestled together at the bottom, but it was nice and it was flat, just a flat piece of fabric when it started. I spent a long time on that, and yeah, that's not going to happen. People are going to lose stuff through their bag. So that wasn't an option. Then I went to a different design. Oops. Where I was kind of thinking like a box, right? So this right here is a flap on top, and this is empty, and your project goes inside here, right? So this is basically like a little boxy bag. There's the strap, but then I was like, oh boy, here we are, binding. What am I going to do to keep this three-dimensional, keep it stiff? And so then I was like, what if I used waxed cotton? I've never used waxed cotton in a design before. It's really popular. It was gaining a lot of popularity when I closed Chicken Boots. And so I tried this version of it. You can even hear it. It's pretty, you know, pretty stiff. And I actually really liked where this started out. You know, I liked that it could stand up as well. You could, you know, if this was the surface of the table here, your little, you know, bin could throw your project in there. And I really like that. I like this kind of little birdhouse looking thing. Yeah, it's a little rough around the edges. I didn't really like these raw edges poking up, even though it didn't technically need binding, even though it's, you know, this is kind of a little bit unravelly for waxed cotton. But I thought, all right, what if this had a hemmed edge? Or, you know, what if I got rid of the hardness here and softened it a little bit, rather than, you know, not looking like this toolbox, you know? And then I kind of played around with the handle. And so then my next iteration on that was this. So then I softened that edge there, put the seam here. I curved this and kind of gave it a little bit of a flare, so you can see that it actually sits up. I know the brightness is really bright right now, but I have a couple dark fabrics to show you. I lined it. This is 2 layers of spoon flour, linen, cotton twill facing one another. So we're seeing the back side of it, because I have a lot of yards of this, and I didn't want the design to distract me from seeing what I'm doing. So I pulled off the handle I made, and I started playing around with all kinds of webbing, because I was just like, oh, I want something kind of like that, but I want it to be functional. I don't want it to get floppy or fall in like this. I want something really simple, but kind of, you know, kind of stays in its shape. So then I found this. This was a failed strap from another project. I made too short, and I needed 1-inch wide webbing, but this was really thick to fold in. So I was like, okay, to fold in down here, if I would have made it 1 inch and I would have had to fold this, that was just too thick for my machine. This is really stiff, this webbing right here, as opposed to this is very floppy. So I was like, okay, I'll just back it off. And I just left this in the bin because I didn't end up using it. It wasn't long enough. But I was like, ooh, this is kind of like this. I have a lot of this webbing. This could work. I kind of like how it hugs it and how it flares there, so that it's kind of doing what I want it to do. It's getting closer there. So when I sewed this, I kind of made an accident here where I put one seam on the outside, one seam on the inside, because I didn't know how to sew my bag yet. You know, it's like, you know how it's going to go in your head. I do a lot of sewing in my head. I'm not one of those people that does a lot of sketching. I've sketched those just for this, even though I have been sketching a lot lately. I don't typically do a lot of sketching. You'll see little doodles on the corners of paper around here, and they're really sketches of pattern pieces, because that's how I think. So then I started going, well, all right, if I really wanted 1 layer of fabric, no lining, no binding, no stiffener, right? That's 4 big asks for me. It's a complete departure from the things I used to sell. It's not a complete departure on how I design, but it is a very, very complete departure on the bags I made and sold. So I remember I need to sew it myself, cut it out myself, and it's about 100 bags. So I have 6 months. So I really need to give myself some time. But what if this was 1 layer of fabric? I would have a raw edge right here at the seam. I could maybe flat fell that. And then when I saw this raw edge, I was like, I could French seam that. I do a lot of French seaming and garment making, and so that's solved right there. So what's left? I have this hem up here. All right, well, if that's all I have left, we can handle that, all right? So for the most part, I'm liking where this is going. So I do 1 more, and this is where I am today. And it didn't go so well because I forgot I didn't change my bobbin, so I have bobbin showing there. I do kind of like this. This is only a single layer of denim. I didn't add enough seam allowance for the flat felling quite yet on this seam yet. It's top stitched down. It still unravels less than that wax cotton does. Go figure. But I do like the French seam here. The stiffer French seam gives the bag structure because I've just made this seam so much stiffer, it actually is helping it poke out. I'm still liking this kind of birdhouse looking bag. It's not a very big bag, but we can't make it too much bigger with the amount of money we have to spend because, that's just how it is, so because I got to save some for labor. So how did I deal with this hem? Well, I didn't deal with it very well. I thought, ooh, I could just hem over the edge here and clean finish the pocket, right? Because I have this raw edge right here. So, and I had allowed a 3/4 inch hem right here. I just didn't end up using it on this bag right here. So let's just use my 3/4 inch hem. Okay, well, course, that didn't work because this edge right here is one long straight edge. There are no corners in it. This piece here has 2 corners. And so you can see it's pretty bad. And I could tell while I was sewing it wasn't going well, even though I was trying. I was like, it'll be fine. I just can't do it this way for production. And then when I turned it right side out, I was like, oh yeah, that's not fine at all. So we got to figure something else out. So now I'm in the process of unpicking it. And I think what I'll probably do on those 3 sides is maybe overlock it. So maybe I have to do a little bit, but the seams need to be finished. So I'm kind of getting there with this. And that's where I'm at with my design. It might change really drastically. So my budget for this project is about $25. That's actually a really high budget. I even question why that's so high. That would have been retail for a lot of our smaller items, and I know that they wanted a larger bag. I have no idea what yarn's going with my bag being sent to people. I have no idea what other makers are in this or other bag makers. I don't know anything about it. I try not to look into things like that because I don't know. I just never have looked at other bag makers and things, mostly because I like to keep my aesthetic my own and not get any outside influence. And we all know this world is rife with people blaming other people for copying and things like that. And one of my hallmarks at Chicken Boots was that I always designed all of my bags that we made and sold. And I never did bag designs that were already out there in the world because there were already plenty of amazing sewists out there sewing and selling those. I didn't need to put my hat in the pile. I didn't need to compete against them, giving them competition because we're in it together. I feel like we're all in it together and we should help each other. And they didn't need me as their competition. So it's kind of like you got that, perfect. In fact, when I made boxy bags, that was the only time I actually asked a friend who made those for a living. I said, hey, do you mind if I make these? I'm gonna do them in vinyl. So I'm doing my own take on it. You don't do anything in vinyl. Is that okay with you? And of course, I didn't need her permission, but she was a close friend and technically a competitor, but we always vended near each other at shows, shared rooms, whatever. And I just wanted to give her a heads up and do it out of respect, right? So that's how it is for things like that. For me, I like to have my own design. I don't like having something that looks like every other thing out there. And nobody did vinyl when I started. Nobody did vinyl at all. It was the one thing I could do that no one was doing at the time. I had access to vendors that were going to give me the good stuff, and that was one of the few assets I could rely on being new and trying to break into a market. There weren't actually a lot of people doing bag making for knitters and stuff at the time. I looked up to a couple, and that was about all I knew. So it kind of worked out, Okay, so and that's another thing. I didn't want to use vinyl in this because that's also a naturally stiff fabric. No seam finishing is technically necessary because it doesn't unravel. It's a very, very affordable product. I have a source for it. I just don't want to use it. It's just not my aesthetic right now, and I didn't want this bag to be clear. I wanted to have a far more organic feel. Made here is Sincere Sheep is a yarn dyer who dyes yarn naturally. Making a vinyl bag seemed completely counter to that aesthetic. So I wasn't going to even consider that. Okay, and so regarding fabrics, this is where I'm at with my fabrics right now. So originally when I was like, all right, no serging, no binding, no stiffener, no lining, how are these edges going to be finished, right? How is it going to stay open? How's it going to stay upright, stiff, not unraveling, not messy? I really like very clean and polished, high quality bags. And I will never make something that's not. I mean, it's just not my style. There are some really cute things out there that are more relaxed and a little more shabby in a cute way, but it's just not my thing, right? Everything's going to be clean finished. So, where I started, this was just rough, right? But then it kind of made me go, waxed cotton. All right, waxed cotton. This one, so then I decided, once I started kind of like liking this design, I was like, okay, I think that this would be kind of really interesting, but what if I did a print? You don't ever see waxed cotton prints, and I thought that would be really interesting. And something that I'm really interested in right now is sketching and fabric design. I've been interested in that for years, I know, but I don't really do a whole lot toward it. And I'm really learning a lot about it, and I've learned a lot about it. And so I thought, this might be a really good project to kind of test those skills out. But how would I get it waxed? And so I contacted the person I bought this from and said, hey, do you do that? Can I send you my canvas or whatever, and will you wax it? You know, what parameters do you require? Do you have a minimum? What do you charge? What's your turnaround time? This is my timeline. This is when I would need the fabric by, and this is the fabric I'm thinking of, and this is the weight that it is. And at the time I was thinking I would design a fabric and do it on spoon flour and then send them the fabric. Yes, that's an extremely expensive option, but it's also why I don't want it lined. I don't want binding or any of these other things that are going to add to the cost. No zippers, no magnets. So then I can put a little more into the fabric. And I don't get wholesale on spoon flour. Even as a pro member, I just don't get wholesale, and I'm not a pro member anymore. So how would I be able to afford that? Keeping the footprint of this so that I get X number of them per yard, you know, and you got to figure out what that is, what you're willing to, you know, what's going to be left for labor, you know. So I haven't heard back from them, though. It's been a few days, and in my opinion, if I haven't heard from you in a few days, I probably won't work with you. It would take a pretty convincing reply at this point for me to consider you not flaky. That's pretty brutal, I know, but it is the truth. I don't mess around when it comes to timelines, and that is one thing. Like, someone making me late, it's just, I can't handle that. I have to be on time. So if you're not going to reply even with a, hey, I'm still thinking about this, we've never done this before, so let me just consult with my partner, or let me do a little bit of figuring and see if I can do this, and I'll let you know by day. You know, at least now you've got, you know, I know what you saw my email, and you're thinking about it. Or you can say, you know, I've never done this before, but I don't think I really have the bandwidth to handle this right now. But thanks for thinking of me, and I'll let you know in the future that if I'm going to do that. You know, there's lots of ways to reply to that, but replying is really key. So, and actually lately, in the last couple of years, I'm actually not a really good replier, but I'm also really hesitant on certain things too. I've been asked to do things for a long time that I just am like, I don't know why this person's asking me to do this. You know, it's not part of what I do. So then I get a little bit like, I know the feeling. So now I'm thinking that wax canvas is probably not going to be in my future. I know, I'm 95% sure I know where they're buying their canvas, because I bought canvas from those same people. Pretty sure this is where I bought it. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same vendor. This is unwaxed. This is what I bought from this vendor. This is theirs. So I could get the canvas, but it's pretty floppy when it's not waxed. I don't know what they're starting with. The ounces they're saying they're selling aren't the same as the ounces as this, but maybe they're giving ounces for after it's waxed. I don't really know what the terminology is when you're talking about ounces of wax canvas. Are they talking about the canvas pre-wax or after wax? I don't know. That's kind of definitely one of those things I've never dabbled in. So this right here, the linen cotton canvas from Spoon Flower, 2 layers, 5.4 ounces per layer, I'm pretty sure. And then that little piece of denim right here, this, I don't know what this is, but it's 1 layer and it's pretty stiff. So got out my little Spoon Flower design kit. If you're interested in designing fabric or buying fabric from Spoon Flower, you must get their kit. It's cheap. It's like $3, and you get a sample of every one of their fabrics and their wallpaper. And you can kind of see how the inks look. I also have the color chart, and so you can kind of see how these, you know, the same color looks on all these different weights, because it changes. It changes quite a bit. Probably doesn't look like, I know my camera's really blown out right now. I'll turn that down for you. Okay, that's a little better. So I pulled out the Eco Canvas. I don't think they have this anymore. My kit might be a little bit out of date. The linen cotton canvas, that's that one right there. And then they have the twill. I've used a lot of the twill. I love the print quality on the twill. I love how easy it is to work with, and that it's very, still has a lot of body. But too lightweight for what I want to do here. So then it leaves these two, the Cypress Cotton Canvas and the Dogwood Denim. And the Cypress Cotton Canvas is 10.6 ounces. The denim is 11.7 ounces. I think I might go with the denim, but I really love the texture of this canvas. So I'm probably going to try them both out and get a yard of each and do some samples. So all these little things I'm doing are adding to how much money I'm not going to make on this project. So is a yard of each of these. I think ones might be, they're in the $30 a yard range. Yeah, that's no joke. That's no joke of a fabric price. But if I don't have to do binding or stiffener or lining, I'm going to make some allowances, especially if I can make that project really good. Because like I said, this is a pet project for me. It's a nice little way to have something to do, collaborate with someone. Some of those things are really good for mental health too, like just kind of being still wanted in this world, or having the interactions, and it maybe allows me to explore something where maybe this will launch into something else for me, like I'm going to make this into a sewing pattern. Maybe it'll, who knows? But it'll be paid for, right? So it'll cover all the expenses of this. And I'm making some really significant changes so that I'm going to have this kind of ability to do this. So this is, I'm going to put some money towards the fabric. Why not? It'll be kind of fun. So that's where I'm at with the fabrics right now. And as far as this is the only other outside thing, I have a lot of this right now in house because I'm selling it for the Wallabies. So as long as I can stay within the 3 colors that I have in stock, unless I want to buy some, I think I'm pretty good on the webbing. I know that. So that's the only 2 items I need for this project, which is, because wait till you see my cost sheets for chicken boots things, you're going to be shocked at how many line items are in each of those. You wouldn't believe it. You think it's 2 things, cotton and vinyl, and it's not. All right. So, all right, that's my thing about fabric. So this is where I'm at with my design. I have a long way to go on it, and there's going to be a couple of aspects that I don't like sewing about this bag, but there always is, But to get this size bag that's easily going to hold the shawl project, I think is a pretty good size bag for this price. So this scarf is pretty long. It's almost done, and I have a ton of balls of yarn in there. And the project will hold the stuff in the bag. And like I said, you can... I should probably fold it up so it fits in there nicer. I'm not really marketing my bag very well, do you, am I? All right, so I was even thinking about putting a loop right here. Maybe you could hang it on the wall. You could have a few bird boxes on the wall with your little projects. I like that idea. I don't know. This is also, Sincere Sheep was generous in saying that I could document this process and also sell this as a sewing pattern someday. So that's kind of partly why I thought this will be a really fun project. So the things I'm going to cover in this are costing, manufacturing, the logistics of it, and my general prep. And I'm going to talk to you about a lot of things like, why I never did wholesale and how I stuck to my guns on that. But I would sell to yarn stores if they were like, hey, I would be like, we don't do wholesale. But, we do have a custom program for if you want to do like 20 of something and you send us the fabric, that's great. And sometimes people would kind of balk at like, oh, but I'm paying for the fabric. The thing is, the fabric, if you saw, and I'll show you this, the fabric was pennies of our cost. I think on the clear wristlet, the fabric maybe cost us under $1, because it's wholesale and it was so little. The overall bag was vinyl and there was a pocket, a handle, and a top. It probably get so many per yard that it ended up being like 56 cents per bag. So for them to say, but we're paying for the fabric, it wasn't a good argument for me. They were getting wholesale on a bag and it was custom. And we had a really small minimum because it was paid advertising. And this is, I guess, one kernel I can leave you with. Paid advertising, it was such a great way for me to get something into a yarn store that I didn't really wholesale to, even if they wanted to. And I could say yes to them for that. And also, maybe my product would be in front of eyes that I would not have normally gotten in front of. And they would cover basically buying these bags wholesale, paid for the materials, the labor, and the time to do it. And then I wasn't shelling out money for advertising. So maybe I didn't make any money, maybe $1.50 per bag. But at the same time, at least it was like paid advertising, but not money out of my own pocket. And, you know, everyone seems kind of happy with that kind of thing. We couldn't always say yes, but we mostly did. So I didn't do a lot of giveaways. I have really strong opinions about sending stuff to people to give away for free. I did one or two, and that was it. I did one consistently and then one other one. And I had really strong opinions about it. I'm sure people thought I'm notorious for that and not saying yes to wholesale. But I will tell you why, and I will give you the language supporting it. And I have really strong opinions on it that I feel are really beneficial. Like I said, I'm really passionate about domestic manufacturing, and I really would like to see more production back here in the United States. It's for me, a big shame that our skilled labor isn't getting paid here, that we've exported it. Now we're all very out of touch with what it actually takes to make something, and we expect something to be $5 when really someone maybe got 3 cents, to do it. And I don't think that that's fair all the way around. So it's definitely coming from a place of privilege as well, because, maybe there's no work to replace it for that person, but such a complicated topic. I can talk a lot about it, and I'm not a very eloquent speaker about it, but I do still think that bringing back some manufacturing here, and if I can help anyone do that and value your time and your skill, you're in the right place. So stay tuned for that pep talk. All right, so that's where we're at with this bag so far. And I will keep you updated. The next post will probably be a lot about the costing and the prep for that. I'll go over one on logistics, on how I'm going to come up with the fastest way to sew it. So we'll talk about the steps, and maybe I'll come up with 3 different ways to make the bag and maybe a few different ways to cut it out. And we'll talk all about that kind of thing. So I hope that this is interesting to some of you. I know it's not my usual live stream stuff, and if you know a bag maker that might be interested in just kind of following along, they might get 1 or 2 little kernels, please feel free to share it. I'm a very non-competitive person when it comes to something like this. I know people don't feel that way, but I'm all about we're all in it together, and if you're doing something identical to your competitor, don't. If they were doing it first, just don't do it. You need to do something that's different. There's just no point unless you're doing something different from what they're doing. And then they're not your competitor. Maybe they can be your ally. Maybe they can be your collaborator. Maybe they can support you and you can support them, and you can become friends and lift each other up. And I think there's just not enough of that. And so I think that I'm not competitive. The only thing I've never shared is my vendors. But I will share everything else. So I'm pretty transparent when it comes to that. Feel free to ask away, and I will share all my costing stuff, all that stuff with you guys. So stay tuned for more updates. I hope you like this, and good luck. Charge fair prices.